Good morning and welcome back again to our number 9 in the series of Literacy Unlocked. I hope you've enjoyed all the sessions so far. It's exciting that we're nearly at the end. So today we're going to put it all together a bit more and look at the road to literacy and how we bring this learning together. So let's have a quick review as we do each week. So facilitators for learning, what helps children to learn? Can you remember the 3 things? So the first was build on what children already know. The second was, is it relevant to them? And the third is motivation. Is it motivational? And then of course we have all our indicators of good literacy. So these are things that children possess if they're good at literacy. So the researchers have looked at children who are really good and children who struggle, and they said it's the same things. So if we can help children to improve in all these skills, then we can help them to be ready for literacy learning. So we've looked at cognitive skills, we've looked at visual skills, listening, language and development and speaking, phonological awareness, syllables, rhymes, phonemes. And then we've looked at phonics last week, matching sounds to symbols. There are 2 things that we haven't looked at. We haven't looked at writing. We've talked about literacy, but mainly reading. So we're going to have a quick look at writing today, how children learn to write, and also motor skills. We haven't mentioned how that links to literacy, so we're going to look at that as well. So lots of things today because it's building up as we go along. So we'll look again at 3 ways that children are taught to read, and then how children do learn to read. So what is your role there and how can you help to support whatever might be going on at school? So looking at the whole process of becoming literate, explain the skills required to learn to write. These are things that you should be able to do at the end of this session. Set up an early years assessment for literacy and consider how children might be at risk. Identify ages, stages, knowledge and skills. This is what parents ask all the time. Give them time, help and support, and often children just do things in their own time. Especially things like literacy. There are some children who read and write at 4 years old and some are still struggling at 7 and 8 years old. We can just do our best to help each one. And explain the role of motor skills. You might think, what have motor skills got to do with literacy? Actually quite a lot. So we're going to take a look at that. And then of course more activities to promote literacy learning. I don't know if you managed to have time to see the video of Tiny Tim. I hope you did. I hope you enjoyed that. If not, it's okay. I'll run through it again today. And if you have a pen and paper ready, you can make some notes if you want. Okay, thank you. Here we go. I might ask you to use it later on. Here we go. So another bit of a recap. How are children taught to read? What happens when your children go to school? Well, as you now know, they start to learn phonics. They start to match language sounds with the alphabetic characters. They also might bring home sight words, little words on a card to learn to read. Now, reading by reading is it's now a discredited way of teaching children to read. We don't like children just to guess words and to learn by reading, but do bear in mind that children who don't read and are not exposed to reading are not going to be the best readers. Remember, we do need an environment that encourages reading and writing. So in a way, reading to read is actually quite important, but it's certainly not a main method of teaching children to read. They won't just soak it in. It's not natural like learning to speak. Oops. So the answer, we've kept asking this question each week. Ask yourself, how do children learn to read? And of course, this is through bringing together all those skills on the diagram, by bringing together the knowledge and skills that are possessed by skilled readers. handwriters. So if I was doing this for real with you, if I was in the room together, I would try to ensure that you had a copy of this. So what this is these are all the things that are the skills that are on the diagram. So I've printed them all out and given some thought to what order you might teach these skills or children might gain these skills. Now, there isn't really an order. This is a problem. Children arrive at school with a whole array of different skills. The teachers have to plug the gaps and try to fill in any bits that are missing. There's not necessarily an order for these. So, you know, you could play with them and take them off and try and see if you could sort out an order. But really, children are all different. I've had some attempt at an order here. I've started off at the bottom, which is going from bottom to top, unlike the diagram. Listening skills. You have to listen before you can learn to speak. You have to be able to pay attention and focus, or else you can't listen. Gross motor skills, where do these come in? When babies start moving. Coordination, the ability to coordinate both sides of your body. Remember we talked about cognitive skills. How does that relate to movement? Of course it does, because your brain is in charge of your body movements. Memory, at what point do children memorize anything? Well, they memorize faces, people, it's all the time, it's growing. Motivation, what do we enjoy? Language comprehension, prediction, fine motor skills, palmar grip. Do you remember we talked about palmar grip like this? And a pincer grip with 2 fingers, sorry. And then 3 fingers for a tripod grip for your pencil. Ability to sequence, automaticity, being able to do things automatically and fluently. RAN stands for random automatized naming, being able to name things quickly in an order, like we do when we're reading. Really, we're reading the picture of the word, if you like, and we're just saying it. It becomes fluent. Visual discrimination, can we tell the difference between shapes of letters? Auditory discrimination, can we tell the differences in sound in a word? If not, it's very difficult to spell a word if you can't work out the sounds in there. Clapping out syllables, identifying and generating rhymes, phonemic awareness, awareness of the smallest units of sound, smallest sounds in words, prosodic awareness, intonation and stress in language, and finally matching sounds to symbols, which is phonics. And of course we've got in there our 3 facilitators for learning. Also, of course, we have bibliographic knowledge. We sort of assume that by the time children get to school, they know which way up to put a book and to turn the pages the right way and to move the text left to right. But this is not the case for all children. Arabic children, for example, who are learning English as well, have to learn that their one language goes one way and the other language goes the other way. That must mess with their heads. It's amazing that what children can do. So this is the road to literacy. So we're bringing all these skills together. Now, someone might also ask me, do we have to have all these skills then, all these on this list before we start with phonics? No, not really. Someone has to start. You can't say, oh, that child over there can't start because they haven't got all these other skills. But the children who do have these skills are more able. So you have to try to fill in the gaps as you go. So elements of the process of learning to read and write, there has to be some chronological order. So teachers have to be able to teach something in an order because one day follows the next. So this is a very rough attempt, if you like, at putting things in some sort of order. So we need spoken language. Children have to be able to listen and to speak. So use of receptive language means understanding the language that is spoken to the children. So people usually have a better receptive language than they have productive language. So they might understand lots of words that go on around them, but they might not use them. So the words that they use are called your productive language. So children need good spoken language. They need to be able to sequence. Remember our cognitive skills: sequence, recognize, match shapes, recognize and match sounds, and they need fine motor skills to be able to write. Also, I've put those in bold because really maybe they're the most major. And then understand that text has meaning. They have to know there is some purpose. What are these squiggles on this piece of paper? Are they just squiggles? No, there is some meaning and some order and some sense to this writing that we have. And bibliographic knowledge, knowing about books, knowing about text. Spoken language prosody. So this helps children to be literate because it helps them to put meaning into the words that they're reading. And they get this through listening to stories that have been told, retelling and reciting their own stories and songs and rhymes. So being able to manipulate language sounds, syllables, rhymes, phonemes, phonological awareness, we've talked about that quite a lot. Understand the concept of beginning, middle and end. So if a teacher asks, what sound is at the beginning of the word bag? Does the child understand beginning, middle and end? And finally, learn how text can represent language sounds. Maybe read and write a child's name. And learn to blend and say blend means pull together, segment means take apart language sounds in words and match them to letters. This is how ultimately children learn to read and write. So what about being able to write? We've not spoken about this very much. So being able to write freely from your mind in your head, you have to bring together many skills. So you have to have an imagination. You have to think about, oh, what do I want to say? But not in word and not in spoken words, in written words. What do I want to say? How am I going to write this down? So you have to know maybe an order, memorize events, things that have happened, or imagine things maybe that might happen, or imagine things that did happen. Maybe you need an imagination to create a story, or you make a story of something real, something factual. And then you need the language to use. You have to have a vocabulary, and you have to be able to put the words in the right order and form sentences in your head and be able to put them in order and write them down. And then you have to know what these words look like. How are you going to form them and make them and put them on a page? Then you have to be able to put everything in order, put the words in order, use phrases, sentences, paragraphs, link your paragraphs to make a nice story. And then, of course, use correct spelling, punctuation and grammar. This is quite a lot for children to learn. So it happens over years. It's a long process. Let's look a bit more about what we can do to help children. Oh, sorry, have I gone on to? No, click the wrong screen, that's what. So we'll have a look at the bit on the left. Do we learn to write by reading? Well, Linnea Erry, very eminent person in the literacy world, says it's a two-way process. If you've seen a word, you're more likely to remember what it looks like and how to write it. So children shouldn't see words that are written incorrectly, because that is what they will then memorize. So I don't like emergent writing and just guess at spelling. It's the same as guessing at reading. You're enabling a child to do it wrong and then remember something that's wrong, which is not helpful. So how do we learn to spell? Well, learning to spell is, we have to know what a word looks like. I've given you an example here. This is a very embarrassing part of my life. At one point, I was sat in an exam room and writing an exam paper for my degree, I think. And I had to write the word kudos. It just came in my head and it was something I wanted to write about. And it occurred to me, I think I'd never seen it. And I thought, oh, kudos. So I thought Q. So I wrote Q-U and then DOS, D-O-S. I thought it doesn't really look right, but no idea what else it could be. I would never in a million years have thought of a K, because a K is K. I wouldn't have thought that. It's actually from a Greek word, which makes sense if you know and you've seen it, but I hadn't seen the word kudos, so I wrote Q-U-D-O-S, much to my embarrassment when I found out how wrong that was. And also when I got home, I couldn't find it in a dictionary because I kept looking under Q. So that was quite difficult. So we need to really see words if we know what they're going to look like. unless of course they've got very regular spelling patterns. Obviously kudos was slightly irregular. So some words we can make because we know the sounds, and they've got regular spelling patterns, so sit, fit, pit. But as with reading, it's better not to guess. It's better that we know what these words look like. So in that way, reading does help writing. Homophones. Homo means the same, phone means sound. So words with the same sound but different spellings. So we've got 3 examples here. Might, night, night, flower, flower. You shouldn't ever teach these words together. I know sometimes maybe a teacher does a lesson on homophones, and but it's not a good idea because the child sees both of these. How do they remember which is which? It's best to do them in a pattern: might, sight, flight, fright. Anything else ending in might? Another sight, not light. Can't think of another word like with light. Bite. Night, night. No, you need to keep this pattern together. So night and might could go together, but not night. Flower, power. Teach those together, but not flower and flower. So if children learn just one of these at a time, then that is the one they'll remember. That's fine. And when they come across the other one in a different circumstance, then they'll relate that to that circumstance and learn to spell correctly. So learning homophones is not a good idea. So here we said again, teach the same sound and spelling patterns together. So here, there, and where are all to do with place. So teach those together because they've got the same spelling pattern and they all relate to place. Things like hair, lair, fair, pair, flare, teach those together, same spelling pattern. And contractions together. Contractions is where something is omitted and there's an apostrophe in the place of the letter or letters that are left out. So we're for we are, they are for they are, I've for I have, he's for he has. So teaching these things together helps them to stick in the child's mind. So how do we physically learn to write? This is how we learn to write in our mind, if you like, generating the words and being able to put them on the page. But how do we physically learn to write? Well, we spoke last week about holding a pencil with a tripod grip. That's one thing children need to be able to do, to be able to physically hold the pencil and control it. So that comes from all the other things we've mentioned, doing little puzzles and being able to manipulate your fingers. So pencil control requires fine motor skills, manipulating your fingers, playing with Play-Doh, sand, puzzles, tweezers, buttons, zips, laces, pegs, and the pencil with the tripod grip. Always have visual references for if children are learning to write, so they can copy a letter shape if they forget how it is. But also, you'll see on this next slide, make sure that it's demonstrated to a child how to form the letters. Do you remember I showed you before in the alphabet book? Start at the top right hand side and then go round with your letters and up and down. So you need circles which go to the left, and you need to go from top to bottom. Don't let children write things from bottom to top. I've seen children like write a number 9 and they start at the line on the bottom and go up and round, and I go, what are you doing? It's to start up at the top and go round and then down. So this is something that needs to be taught in the beginning. Also, you can do this at home. It's very nice. Just take a ribbon and do big movements first. So if children are going to learn small movements for writing, you need to be able to do them in big movements first. So do a big A and go round together, hold the child's arm and do a big A and down and a little tick at the bottom. And down and up and round for a B. And round like a cat's head for a C or whatever. So that, there's lots of things you can do to help children to learn to form these letters in the way that they need to be formed. And if children don't learn that, the letters might not look right, they won't be neat, and then it'll be more difficult for them to join to other letters later on when they learn to do cursive writing, which is joined up writing. Tracing, this is good for pencil control. I'm tracing here with my hand, tracing lines, circles, zigzags, and pictures. I like doing dot to dots, things like this. These are all good practice for writing for children. Also use paper with very wide lines, like the one we'll see in the next slide. Oops, I'm clicking the wrong screen again. So we've got, this is a writing book, and you can see that it's got letters to trace round, shows you how to do the letter. You go round the letter A, and then the child is shown how to do it themselves and do it within the confines of this space. It's a nice way to teach writing. It's a nice little writing book. So learning to write, children learn to correctly form the shapes, hopefully, sometimes by tracing them. Children copy given words for reading and writing practice, and to practice writing on a line. Children learn about forming sentences using capitalization and appropriate punctuation. You can see in this book here. So we're just starting with the letter A, and then we've got alligator. It's a long word to start beginning writing. And then we've got some names and a capital A, and then some single words, and then a sentence. And of course, the use of capital letters. It's quite a lot to learn in these 2 pages in this book here. Children use their knowledge of sight words as well. So we've got in here friends, remember, friends, and ability to blend phonemes. So you might have pl, a for play, and their knowledge of phonics to form their own words and eventually sentences. So this little sentence at the end here says, I can play, and the child is asked to fill something in at the end of the sentence. So I can play with my friends, I can play outside, I can play tambourine. Lots of things you could add on there. Oops, sorry, moving mouse. Something else here that you can maybe do yourself at home with a child, or you can notice, this is a more formal assessment, if you like. Informally, you just need to watch your children and see what they're able to do. Can they clap syllables? Can they recite rhymes? Can they sing songs? Can they remember? Can they tell a story? Do they have favourite books they want you to read over and over? These are things as a parent you look at. These are things that you want your child to be able to do. This is an example of a more formal assessment here. It's something I did with some children in a school. So I found a little book of shapes and asked the children, these were second language learners, and asked the children, could they name the shapes? And then they had to look at the picture. So you see the picture here of a bus, and can you see the octagon in the picture of the bus? Here it is on the stop sign. So it was about naming shapes and also being able to recognize the shape and recognize the shape if it was somewhere else within another picture. Remember we talked about that visual skill earlier on. This, of course, you've seen is syllabification. So can children identify syllables in words? Here we had lion was 2, octopus was 3, alligator was 4, along with watermelon, 3 for banana, 2 for spider. Children generally, if they're shown how to do that, I think they find that quite easy. I've come across children who can't do it because they've not been shown how to do it, but once they're shown how to do it, they seem to find that quite very easy. I haven't found anyone that goes, oh, I know I can't do it. You just keep doing it each week, and the children learn to do it. This is about rhyming. So I asked children to match the rhyming shapes. It's also about naming. Do the children know this is called a clock? I think I mentioned before that all the children said to me socks. There was only one sock. So I had to explain sock and socks. There was a difference in the sound there when the word was plural. So they had to match jug and bug, hand and sand, sock and clock. And tell me, can you think of a word that rhymes with mouse? So that was a little rhyming exercise. And then we had phonemic awareness. Remember we had our Elkonian boxes. So apple, ant, ish. See if the children could segment phonemes. Then we had letters. So I asked the children what these letters were. And actually the children all seemed to be taught letter names. So they could all tell me G, T, R, N. But I wanted, of course, the sound. So then I said, can you tell me the sound that this makes? And I wanted G, G, and I wanted T, and I wanted R, and I wanted N. So you need to ask children letter names and sounds. Yes, they do need to learn letter names, and it also gives them something to hang this learning onto. If you know two things about something, you're more likely to remember it. So if you know the letter name and a sound, you're more likely to remember than if you only know the sound or the name. Also, these were some sight words. So these children were 6, 7 years old, I think. So I wanted to know if they know any sight words. These are words that you will see regularly. So that was another part of my little assessment, if you like. So this is, I've put here age 5 to 7. That is a huge gap, really. I could have put 4 to 7. I didn't want to send you into a frenzy of, does my child have to do this at age 4? No, the answer obviously is no. It's a process that takes a long while, and children do it at their own pace. And it's not a good idea to push them or stress them. Should be something that's pleasurable. So I've put here ages 5 to 7 because remember we said by age 7 children need to start being able to learn to read so that then they can read to learn. Not that it stops, we carry on learning more and more about reading and writing and spelling, maybe forever. Certainly increase our vocabulary forever. I can learn new words all the time. So it goes on forever, but really 7 and 8 children are exposed to maybe science books or maths books that they need to be able to read the questions and need to be able to read the information. So we want them to get there by then. Otherwise, their life becomes more difficult. So what else do we want them to do? I asked these children, can you tell me a story? Can you sing me a song? Can you tell me a rhyme? Can we have a chat? Can you tell me about yourself? Where do you live? What do you like to do? Phonological awareness, of course, we've done these here. Letter sounds and sight word reading. So this is what teachers want children to be able to do, really, before they start with phonics. Of course, this is a little later on. I wanted to see what exactly do these children know so far. So you might ask, ages, stages, what do you want children to do at what age? Here is very, very rough. Remember, this is so general. Age 3 to 4, we want children to be able to have started speaking and to be able to say what they want and understand what you're saying to them. So their vocabulary should be building, their understanding of instructions, ability to listen to stories, rhymes and songs. They should be able to focus and listen. You should be able to recite their own songs and rhymes, respond to questions, know about books, which way up, ability to read books. So just sit and, I'm looking for a book, sorry. Just sit in themselves and go through a book. Just look, so you know. I don't actually mean read the words, decode the words off the page, but they can sit and they can look at a book and turn over the pictures, like turn over the pages like this and look through the pictures, or even follow the words. Manipulation of writing or drawing implements. We want them to be able to hold something, maybe a paintbrush, and be able to manipulate the fingers, play with Play-Doh. And then 4 to 5, we've got phonological awareness. Now we're trying to build that in, awareness of prosody, sequencing, singing songs about numbers, weekdays, months, recognize different text maybe, that the posters that you walk past outside are not telling a story, maybe they're giving information. So environmental text. And we want children to develop an interest in letters, maybe be able to recognize their name or even write their name. An interest in what do these words say? Lots of children know, Mummy, what does it say? This is what we want. We want an interest in it. Again, retelling stories, recalling events, songs and rhymes and stories. That's all the way through. Copying of numbers, learning numbers, copying and matching shapes. So what about age 5 to 6? A little bit more, be able to play with the sounds in words, generate rhymes, substitute phonemes, fat, cat. Increased vocabulary again, asking and answering questions, talking about characters in a story and the plot. What happened? What happened at the beginning? What happened in the middle? What do you think is going to happen at the end? Oh, that's what happened. Could there have been a different ending? Understand the concept, beginning, middle and end. This is important, remember. Enact a drama. Okay, lots of children. I remember my brother always dressing up as a cowboy. The cowboys and Indians that my dad would watch on the television, and he would go and find his cowboy outfit. He'd come back in it with his guns in his holster, and just loved being a cowboy then. So children like to act out what goes on. They might just be in a play kitchen cooking and making tea, or anything that they see going on in their environment that adults are doing. They want to do the same thing. It's how they grow up and how they learn what to do. Pencil control, we've mentioned. We now want some clear outlines. Can they draw a circle and a straight line and start to make letters? This is what we're wanting. And then introduction to phonics. So I'm saying 5 to 6 here, introduction to phonics, because that is what happens in the UK when children go to school. This is when it starts. Not all children are ready, as you can see. We want every child in that class to have brought with them all those skills on that diagram. Maybe not. But we don't need to worry about if they haven't. We just need to carry on and help them until they can. It might just all happen later. Okay, we're going to have a little recap on cognitive skills, because that was quite a long time ago when we did that, if you remember. Sorry. There we go. So we were saying, why are visual skills important? Well, children need to be able to see the difference between words and between letters and shapes. Now, I'm mentioning here word shapes. Do children learn to read by shapes? The research says not. My husband claims that he reads all the words by their shape. But research says no, we don't do that. We actually look at the letters and work out what the words say. I think people are all different, personally. Discriminate between different letter shapes. So if you see an A that's written a little bit strange, or it's a little bit squashed, or a little bit tall and thin, or wide and scrawly, we still know it's an A. So you have to be able to recognize it, especially in typed fonts. The typed font A is quite a strange one that I don't think I could write, actually. But we have to recognize it as an A, the same as a handwriting A. Visuospatial, spacing between the letters, words, sentences and paragraphs. Sometimes children struggle with putting spaces between words when they first start writing, and we ask them, please put a finger, write the word, and then put a finger, and then write the next word, so that they've got a space between each word. Otherwise, it's very hard to read the words. Visual sequential, can we see in our minds the order of the letters? This is what we need to be able to spell. Can we see them in a background? Can we see we mentioned the octagon on the bus. There was a stop sign on the bus. Can children see a letter within a word? This is what we want children to be able to do as well. Visual closure. So if a letter O is only 3/4 written, can we still recognize it's an O? Can we put in the missing bit with our mind? And what about the cognitive skills? Do you remember what we did? Comprehension, understanding concepts, talking about the world, cause and effect, reasoning, DM is decision making, reading for meaning. Children have got to understand what they're reading, otherwise where is the point? There's no point to reading if we can't make some sense of it. It's just a decoding exercise. Concentration. In order to learn, children have got to be able to concentrate, pay attention, put things in a sequence, know what's going to come next. So I know we don't want children to guess words, but as an adult, when we read, I think a lot of the time we know what the next word will be, because we're used to the language and we know what it will be. We don't decipher every single word. So children do need that skill as well. And automaticity. Do you remember we're going to look at this again at the end. We talked about if children can do something, then your brain does it automatically. It's a bit like us learning, adults learning to ride a bike or driving a car. We do it automatically. We don't have to think about each step all the time. And then your brain is freed up for the next thing. You know, sometimes when we go out, you know, somebody asks a question and you're thinking about something else and you're in the middle of doing something else and you can't do all three things at once. So you don't answer the question you've just been asked because you're in the middle of two other things that you're trying to use your mind for. It's the same for children. So, you know, once they've learned one thing, then their brain is free to start learning the next thing. So think about that before you start stressing them and asking questions and they're doing lots of thinking all at the same time. So automaticity and memory, of course. We need a memory for facts, recall events, know what words sound like. We need an auditory memory, and we need a visual memory to know what words look like. Now, movement. This is something that you might wonder, what has movement got to do with literacy? Actually, quite a lot. So the mind and the body are interrelated in something called embodied cognition. It means that what happens in our environment, so what we perceive or what we perceive to be happening in our environment, we process in our mind, and then that then tells us what to do with our bodies. So for example, if we're going to touch something that's hot and someone says, oh, don't touch that, it's hot, then our mind then tells us, oh, no, oh, as you're putting your hand to go and touch something, no, don't do it. So your mind and your body are interrelated all the time. We need to think about this in children's learning, because using movement to learn helps to embed learning. So physical activity also can improve focus. Focus helps learning. Moving to language rhythms. I once had a little group of children. I can't think what the rhyme was. It was a song, it was a little song, and one of the girls was going like this the minute the music started, and she was just in time to it. And I wondered about her literacy skills. Actually, she was really good at literacy because she understood with her body. I could see that her body understood. So obviously her mind understood the rhythms in what it was that we were singing. So that was embodied within her. I hope it's hard to explain it. I hope you understand what I'm saying there. So moving to language rhythms helps children to embody patterns of stress and intonation. Kinesthetic learning, so learning through movement. Movement helps memory. Gesturing, when we go like this, frees up our memory. So people who talk a lot often gesticulate a lot, and it's because while they're doing that, their mind is thinking of the next thing, and this helps to free the brain up. So if movement helps to free the brain, think how useful that is. It also helps us to construct language. You know, we use our hands to say, it was a square, it looked like this. Or what about a spiral? Try explaining a spiral to someone without being able to go like this. Hand clapping songs, apparently, there's research that says that children who do hand clapping songs have got better motor skills and cognitive skills than children who don't. It's an interesting piece of research. And the cerebellum, do you remember we mentioned that at the beginning? In the back of your head here, part of the brain. It plays a role in word recognition and also coordination of movement. Remember we spoke about timing. The cerebellum is the part of the brain that's in control of timing. So it may be times as you're looking at a word and processing it, it's timing, processing of words. You can now see how that relates to literacy. Moving to rhythms promotes automaticity. If you do something over and over again, it becomes automatic, like driving a car. Also fluency of speech. Brain plasticity, do you remember that? We said that brains are plastic between the ages of 0 to 8, which means that they're more malleable and they change at the greatest rate in those early years. So brain plasticity is greatest then. So anything that we can do to help children in those early years is sure to help and have a greatest effect on them at that time. So we finally got to Tiny Tim. So I'm just going to make sure that my speaker will play. Sometimes when it's turned off, if it's off for more than 10 minutes, that's it, it shuts down. So I'm going to leave you with this, and if you've watched the video, think about the skills that will match with that activity. So think about, I'm going to do it for you in a minute. Think about the activity if you've already looked at it, and which of these skills here can be promoted, can be learnt through the activity. Okay, I shall go away and put my speaker on and we're back in a second. Amazingly, it's all ready to go. So it's called Tiny Tim. So you can have a picture of a turtle. I had a picture of a turtle for a very long time because I didn't have a turtle. And then I found this little turtle. She's very sweet. And then I found a little finger turtle, which is also very cute. And then I went to the SeaWorld and I found this turtle. So of course I couldn't come home without it. So in the song, drinks up all the water and it eats up all the soap. Okay, so if you can have props along with your songs, the children like this and it helps their memory. Here we go, we'll have a go to. I had a little turtle, you can sing along, his name was Tiny Tim. I had a little turtle and his name was Tiny Tim. I put him in the bathtub to see if he could swim, but he drank up all the water and he ate up all the soap. The next thing I knew, he had bubbles in his throat. So in came the doctor, in came the nurse, and in came the lady with the alligator purse. And out went the doctor, out went the nurse, and out went the lady with the alligator purse. Oh, nice little rhyme. So, did you enjoy that little rhyme? The children just love it. And of course, join in. And in the video, I did have puppets, if you remember, and the puppets also had letters on. So, how can that help literacy? Let's have a look. So, cognitive skills, comprehension. Do the children understand what is happening in that story? Why did he have bubbles in his throat? What would make bubbles? Well, certainly the water and the soap would make bubbles in his throat. So what had to happen? We had to get a doctor and a nurse. No idea what the lady with the alligator purse was. Maybe she brought some money to pay the doctor and the nurse. I don't know. Do you think children would pay attention? Oh yes, definitely they do. Was there a sequence? Yes, the doctor and the nurse and the alligator purse. And what happened? Why did the person put him in the bathtub? To see if he could swim, but he didn't. What did he do? So there's an order. What do you think happened at the end? We didn't put him in the bathtub again. Automaticity. So to be able to sing that song, you have to be able to keep going. You have to be fluent in your singing and keep the words coming. And you have to be able to do them in time. A little bit about using music or not using music. I often think it's a good idea to introduce songs first without music because you can do them more slowly and you can discuss words and what it is you're going to do, which is what we want for literacy. However, if you add the music, it adds more interest, it keeps it going, and you need to keep up. So you have the timing issue, and of course timing is something that we want children to be able to do, to keep in time, especially if it's a movement thing. and we want in came the doctor. We want them to do this at the right time. So automaticity, yes. Memory, can they remember the story, what happened? Yes. Can they remember the words from the previous time? Intonation and stress. Maybe there's a little bit of changes in the words there, in how you say them. Obviously you modulate your voice, the person singing it. Listening skills, yes. Speaking skills, yes. Often little children won't join in with songs, but it doesn't matter, don't force them. As long as they're listening, that's fine. Syllables, well, remember we said the music is syllabic. In came the lady with the alligator purse. So the music there is actually telling you where the syllables are, so it's helping children to syllabify. Were there any rhyming words in there? Yes, Tim, swim, purse, nurse. And phonemes. Tiny, Tim, turtle. So we've got alliteration being used there with the T sound. Visual discrimination. Do we know the difference between a turtle and a tortoise? You could talk about things that are different. Did the doctor and the nurse look different? How did you know one was a doctor, one was a nurse? What do they wear? Different clothes? And also the puppets that I had, if you remember, they had letters on, so you could talk about the letters there. So mapping the sounds to symbols, if you were so far along this process, you could use those puppets with the letters on. Very nice. Motor skills, yes, we have motor skills joining in. Motivational, yes. Did we use music? Yes. So, you know, lots of these little songs, there is so much in them that children can learn, but it's not about just doing the songs, is it? So we could do the song and it's very nice, children learn it. But what we do want to bring out is all these skills. As a teacher or as a parent now, because you know all this, this is what you are looking for. You are looking to see the children have these skills. Okay, so what can you do? Florida Reading Research Centre, or Centre for Reading Research, I've told you about that before. And Sounds and Symbols videos are on Facebook and YouTube. Visual skills we've talked about, puzzles and manipulating fingers, puzzles, cutting, drawing, matching shapes, etc. Cognitive skills, comprehension, do you remember we did build a brick? Can you build a brick? 1, 2, 3, build your bricks. Can you build a house? Just like me, we did. Cobbler, cobbler, mend my shoe. We did that one. Sequencing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Automaticity, we did open, shut them, open, shut them. We've done lots of rhymes so far. King's Game, language production, 5 fat peas in a pea pod pressed. Retell stories, recite rhymes, poems, sing songs. Mousy Brown, the tall white candlestick, went little Mousy Brown. Hurry, hurry, drive the engine. And then we had in a book and a song and a rhyme. 5 little ducks went swimming one day. Oh no, sorry, not didn't go swimming one day. It's a different version. Went out one day over the hills and far away. That was it, yes. And the mother duck went quack, 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 quack. Can you remember what happened at the end? Listening, matching sounds. Montessori bells is all about matching sounds and listening carefully. If you have those, if you're lucky enough ever to get a set of those, wow. Rhymes, songs, stories. Have you noticed there's a repetition here? Rhymes, songs, stories, but it's not about rhymes, songs, stories. It's what you do with them that's the issue. We'll look at that next week. Motor skills, fine motor skills, which means small motor skills, and big motor skills, being able to draw in the air and stamp and march and hop and jump and skip. Marching, skipping, ball games we talked about. For my fine motor skills, use of a pencil, a paintbrush, tracing. And phonological awareness. So we had syllables, we did the owl and the pussycat, went to sea in a beautiful pea green boat, one of my favourite. Tongue twisters, Sister Susie sews socks for soldiers, Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled pepper, etc. So lots and lots of activities that we've gone through over these 9 weeks. And of course, Tiny Tim today. Or not so Tiny Tim. So, after today, this is what I expect that you can now do. You can talk about 3 ways children are taught to read, and you can talk about how children learn to read. You can talk about the process of becoming literate. How do children become literate? What skills do children need to be able to write? Can you suggest some activities for tests for children? Can you assess them? Could you look at your children and assess what things might be missing or they might need, or maybe things that you think, oh, they'll do these things later? Can you explain the role of motor skills in literacy? What have they got to do with literacy? And I hope now you have lots of activity ideas to promote literacy learning. I told you we would just have this slide from previous as well. Next slide. Remember, when the brain is learning, it's fully engaged. It's like when you're trying to listen to someone, but you're doing something else. Once something becomes automatic, the brain doesn't need to focus upon it anymore, and it gets on with the next thing. If all these skills on the diagram become automatic before we introduce formal literacy learning, then the brain is freed up to focus upon actually doing it, learning to read and write. Sorry, other way around. If they've got all those skills first, then they can focus on reading and writing, and then once reading and writing become automatic, then the brain is freed up and can read to learn. We do, nevertheless, as mentioned before, continue to learn more about reading and writing forever. I'm sure I could learn a lot more about reading and writing forever and ever and ever, and I certainly hope that I do. So I hope that you've enjoyed today. We have quite a lot in there again today, and next week it's not about singing songs, rhymes and stories. It's about what you do with those stories. So I've been around lots of nurseries and they go, yeah, we do songs, rhymes and stories. What do you do with them is my question. And how do you link those to literacy learning? Do you know what you could do, how you could get the most out of these songs, rhymes and stories? So hopefully you do now know this, and this is what we're going to go over next week. Anything else that we might have missed, more activities, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Thank you very much for joining me so far. Okay, thank you very much. Have a good week, have a good weekend, have a good week, and I'll see you again next week. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.